Good evening, everyone. I will call to order the public portion of the March 31st, 2025 Board of Selectmen meeting at 6:54 PM. We did start this evening at 6:30 with a non-public session with Police Chief Moore to discuss an employee issue. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before proceeding with the balance of the agenda, I will motion to seal the minutes from the earlier non-public session because it determined that divulgence of this information would likely adversely affect the reputation of a person who is other than a member of this board. Is there a second on that motion?
Second?
Thank you, Selectman Drury. All in favor say yes or yay? Yes?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Motion passes. Thank you. We have a special topic tonight, and we have Terry Knowles here to present the Board of Selectmen with some training on trustee of the trust funds. For those of you at home that might not know, the trustees of the trust funds are elected officials in Ware and are custodian of the town's perpetual care funds, charitable trust, and capital reserve / expendable trust funds. The trustee of the trust funds make decisions regarding the expenditure from these funds based on the wishes of the donor in the case of privately donated funds. I thank Ms. Knowles for coming tonight to help this board better understand the role of the trustee of the trust funds, the funds themselves, and any do's and don't tips that you probably have for us to be aware of in our role when overseeing the affairs of the town. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some handouts for you.
Thank you. Is the green light on your?
Yes.
Oh, you did. turn it.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, it's the eternal PowerPoint.
Thank you.
No,
Yeah, I've got a couple of extras, so.
May we get one more, if you
Oh,
have
of
extra?
course.
For Selectman Bloom.
There we
Thank you.
go.
Thank you.
If I could ask you, I was here, are you going to do public comment tonight?
Oh, I apologize.
Oh.
No, I apologize, Frank. I totally skipped over that. My fault. Yes, Terry, I apologize.
No
Can we
problem.
Do public comment first?
Sorry, Terry.
Sorry.
But
Thank you for keeping me honest.
Go first.
No? Anyone here for public comment? Barry? Sorry about that. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Sherry Burdick, Deering Center Road. I just heard back from the state since last June, about a grant that I wrote. And the state of New Hampshire has decreased the grant amount by about 3/4. So they're only gonna give out 100,000 this year, so I missed it to get the grant for the horse sheds.
So we got zero? Is
We
that what
got
you're saying?
0.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that's what you were saying, but just.
So I don't know if there's any money in the, for building maintenance or not, but I don't know that building, I don't think it should go another year. It's starting to leak, number one. But number two, I also was told by another state employee over there in Concord that they don't think that they're gonna have any money next year for grants, for the Moose Plate grant.
Okay. And would you
So-
remind me, how much did we anticipate that repair would cost?
We had two, I think we had two bids. One was like, around, I think, don't quote me, 15,000, and one was maybe 21,000. That was all new roofing, removing of the roofing, replacing with all new 50-year architectural shingle, replacing the rotten boards and putting them all back
Yeah,
on.
I was thinking it was somewhere in the 20K range, so
That was low
thanks.
20s, and there was another one, I think it was like 15-ish. Don't quote me on that, though, because it's been almost a year now.
Okay.
All right?
Well, thank you for the update. We can discuss this later. I'm not sure if we'll have an answer tonight or not, or if it needs to be rolled over into another meeting, but we can certainly discuss whether or not there are town funds available. Anyone else for a public comment?
Thank you, Frank Campana. I was on the agenda on March 10th for an issue about not coming forward with the total amount of the police pay in regards to details. So I just, behind a little bit. So my wife got me the minutes Saturday, and I read them. And I think they read okay. I think they're a little bit sanitized, but what was very evident to me at the very beginning of my presentation, I handed Naomi, the town administrator, I handed you folks a statement that I requested to be in the minutes. And I said at the time, I spoke to Naomi the best way to go about doing that. And, she said to basically write out what I want, and then she can scan them in. So it would save somebody, having to type it in. Well, they don't appear. Okay? I called Naomi, town administrator, this morning first, because I didn't want to blindside her. And she told me what, she felt the issue was. But unfortunately, there's one member missing tonight. But now, I accept her, and if you want to ask her, she can explain better how they can get recorded in the minutes. She did say that the minutes, the board does not want them verbatim, and I understand that. You don't want every single word. But again, I specifically asked at the beginning to have this statement recorded, and it's not there. So I really have to point my finger to the board because you accepted those minutes last week at your last meeting, and there were 5 of you here when I presented my statement, yet it slipped by everybody. I don't know if it was intentional, by error, or what. But nobody, if you had read the minutes, you could have, one of the 5 could have said, well, Campana gave us a statement to be entered in, and it doesn't appear. That didn't happen. So I don't know if that's part of the, the verbatim that you want to leave out. But again, I asked specifically for that to be in, and you can check with the town administrator. She can maybe help out with that. But so I'm not pleased with that at all. It's certainly another indication to me of, again, it could have been an error. I can understand that, and there may be a correction, but still, it's another indication to me of public information not being printed, especially when somebody from the public asks specifically to have it recorded. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Sorry, Terry. Richard Butt, good evening. I'm a little concerned about the statements that were made at the last meeting and information that I saw in the last Ethics Committee meeting. It would appear that the Ethics Committee has, and I believe you attended the meeting, provided some advice that they wanted to destroy the minutes. I don't know what gives anybody the right to destroy public record. They wanted to destroy the minutes of their January meeting. In addition to that, they also, and I'm assuming the board's aware of this and had voted on it, also removed the video from Channel 6. It's distressing to hear that that was done, regardless of the reason. Because there are other comments that are in the minutes of the Ethics Committee that actually name the employee. They're still in the minutes. So removing and destroying minutes of a meeting seems to be an egregious. And then for a committee that doesn't even report to the Board of Selectmen, an elected committee, to tell a member of the cable committee to remove a video without going through the board, unless you authorized it, without going through the Board of Selectmen, seems problematic. It's what's stopping anybody from saying, that's not what I meant at the last meeting, even though I said it, so could we remove the minutes and remove the video? I mean, it almost gets to that point. Now, maybe you're under some legal obligation to do that. I'd like to know that. But you're in an area, in my opinion, that's illegal. Destroying public minutes and removing a video, which is an ancillary record of the meeting. It's not the official record. The other thing is the police department and the highway department, I'm talking specifically about the police department, has been on a program to replace some of their vehicles, especially the Dodge Charger. And the board failed to even recognize that this year in terms of using any unreserved fund balance money to offset that cost. And given the economic climate today, the only way people are going to approve things on a warrant if there's some effort to offset the cost. You had almost $400,000 more than the minimum required by DRA in the undesignated fund balance. But none of with the exception of one person sitting here, the newly elected member, not a single member of the board approved that amendment at the deliberative session to use unreserved fund balance money to offset that cost. Both departments, police and highway, really are limited in terms of revenue, unlike the fire department. So I don't understand why the board can't understand that people are hurting. These things are necessary. You're putting the officers at risk, you're putting the public at risk. These are vehicles that have 300,000 miles on them and really not suited for our terrain. But you did not even make an effort as part of your deliberating prior to putting it on the warrant. You did not even think about using undesignated fund balance. You had $400,000 more than the minimum. You knew that at the deliberative session, but you didn't support an amendment that would have offset in total the cost of that vehicle. We would have had a new vehicle, it would have been kept in the rotation. Now you set that department back 2 years. We're going to be dealing with vehicles that are probably going to have 400, 500,000 miles on them, and their trade-in value is nil. You know, if we went with the program with the Chevy Tahoe, there's some value to that vehicle at the end of its life. There's very, very little value left on the Dodge Charger. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, Ms. Knowles, I apologize. We're ready now. Thank you.
I appreciate the board inviting me here tonight to go over the wonderful world of trust funds. What you have in front of you is the PowerPoint I'm going to be speaking from, and please interrupt me with questions at any point in time. The first thing to understand is that we have elected officials called trustees of trust funds. And they have a legal duty to carry out the purposes specified by the donor of money to the town of Ware. They also have the duty to make sure that any capital reserve funds or general fund trusts that are created by warrant article are spent for the purpose for which the voters voted for those particular articles and for no other purpose. So they hold public money and they hold private money. So we have 3 boards of trustees in every town. We have the trustees of trust funds, the library trustees, and the cemetery trustees. So do these boards ever interact? And the answer is yes, they do. When we're talking about the cemetery trustees, and I know you also have a cemetery advisory committee, but you are the cemetery trustees, you're the public officials with the authority to expend income from trust funds, money from perpetual care, cypre money, and funds for general cemetery care. Trustees of trust funds release that money upon receipt of a voucher, in this case from the cemetery trustees. The important distinction is the statutes do not authorize cemetery trustees to hold trust fund money on their own. You're permitted to be the authority that allows the money to be expended, but you're not allowed to hold trust fund money. Library trustees are a little bit different. If someone says, I give to the town of Ware $100,000 to be used for the Page Memorial Library. That money, because it is given to the town, is held by the trustees of trust funds. But if the donor says, I hereby give to the Page Memorial Library $100,000, that money is held by the library trustees. So they're permitted to hold trust fund money on their own. Why this distinction? It's because both the trustees of trust funds and the library trustees, as well as the Board of Selectmen, are covered with a bond. That means that if money is stolen or misappropriated, we have a bond that covers the amount of money that's been taken. Again, cemetery trustees are not bonded under the same law. The legislature could certainly change the law, but right now, that's the way that the law stands. So when we talk about trust funds, does that mean that the town can accept anything given to it? And the answer is no. The only money that a town is permitted to hold is money for a public purpose. So if I said to you, I'm going to give you $50,000 to be held in trust, the income to be spent on my nephew until he reaches the age of 21, then you can have the rest, you would have to reject that gift because there's a private component to it. Likewise, in the city of Merrimack, many years ago, someone wanted to give money for a scholarship for the children of anybody who had ever worked at the Budweiser Brewery. Well, you can imagine that would have been an administrative nightmare. So the town of Merrimack rejected that gift, which they were permitted to do. So when we're offered a gift, and we're going to talk about how acceptance works, it needs to be looked at to make sure, number one, it's legal, and number two, it's not going to be so administratively difficult that it's going to take more time than it's worth. So again, public only, not private funds. Okay. So what is a public purpose? And the slide that I've given you under RSA 3119 defines what a public purpose is, and it's everything that you would imagine. Cemeteries, education, libraries, so on and so forth. And then at the end, there's sort of a catch-all phrase. Any other public purpose which is not foreign to the institution of the town or incompatible with the objects of your organization. So in other words, they may have named it specifically earlier in that particular law, but if something is offered to you that is not specified here, it doesn't mean you can't accept it. You just have to use the public purpose test to make sure it's going to benefit the public. So we have a bifurcation of administration versus acceptance. Trustees of trust funds are responsible for administering the private donations that are given to the town or city for public purposes. However, they do not have the ability to accept or reject a gift. And there are two methods of acceptance. One is the old-fashioned way, where we used to have a warrant article to see if the town will vote to accept all gifts, bequests, devises, blah, 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 given to it during the year. The problem with that is if you had an emergency and you're raising money for that emergency, you can't spend the money until the next town meeting because there's no spending of money without acceptance. So the legislature put in a couple of statutes. One says that towns may delegate to the Board of Selectmen the ability to accept these gifts on behalf of the town without further action of town meeting. And we've done that in the town of Ware. And that makes perfect sense because, as I said, if you have an emergency or there's something coming up and you need money for it, now you can accept that money in the name of the town. The town meeting does not have to accept it via warrant article.
Is there any cap on value for that?
There is not a cap on value. I'll tell you about the guardrails that are around that money, but there's no cap. The only cap is the amount of money that requires a public hearing, and I'll talk about that in just a minute.
Right, but as far as the acceptance itself?
Nope.
Yeah, I
Accept-
think the value was 5,000 for a public hearing. if I
That's
recall
exactly right. Yep, 5,000 is a public hearing. So, actually, no, I'm wrong on that. 5,000 for the library, 10,000 for you guys. They amended that law.
Oh, okay.
So it's $10,000. So what are these funds that come in between town meetings called? Well, they're called unanticipated funds. That means that you didn't know about these monies at the time that you were setting the budget. So someone may have died and left you a bequest, there may be a fundraiser for a new memorial bench in Ware Center, all different sorts of things. What it means is that money coming in during the year can be accepted and expended without further action of town meeting. Because what the law says is it's exempt from the municipal budget law when it comes to budgeting and expenditure. Remember, we've got the old rule, no spending without an appropriation? Well, unanticipated funds are the exception to that rule. However, you cannot accept anything that's going to require the voters to take care of it. So if you're accepting a whole lot of money, but there has to be a match from the town, you're not permitted to accept it and expend it at that point in time. You can accept the money pending further town meeting action, but you can't bind your taxpayers to pay for something for unanticipated funds or indeed for objects that you're being given. If someone wants to give you a computer system, hey, that's wonderful, but you can't force your taxpayers to pay for the maintenance of that nor the upgrade to any of the software. So there are guardrails about what you can do with this money. And as I mentioned to your chair, under RSA 3195B, if it's more than $10,000, you have to have a public hearing. And we all know under the right to know law that there are two different ways of having the public involved. Number one is what you did tonight. You have a time for the public to come and speak to you for a limited amount of time. The other way, and you don't have to respond, you simply allow them to speak. When it comes to a public hearing, the difference is you have to listen to the public. You would say, okay, we've been offered a gift of $15,000 for X, for some purpose. We're holding a public hearing because we want to know how you feel about it. And people can object. They can say, no, that's not a good idea. We shouldn't be accepting that money. Certainly something for you to take into consideration. So again, under the public hearing process, you have to listen to the public when they come in. You're allowed to, although we've not done this in the town of Ware, you're allowed to have a warrant article that says you have to have a public hearing for something less than $10,000, but that's not something we've done at this point in time. Now, there's also something called trust funds created by town meeting. And I want to clear up any confusion on these because, unfortunately, when the statute was written, we called these things trust funds created by towns. In other words, they are created by a town meeting. You'll have a warrant article to see if the town will vote to create the cemetery maintenance trust fund and to take any other action pursuant thereto. That's fine, except that warrant article creating that fund can only be funded with taxpayer money, not private donations, because the statute is very clear that if you have private donations for the same purpose, you can't commingle them. Why do you suppose that is? It's because the town giveth and the town taketh away. And at any point in the future, the town meeting can rescind that earlier warrant article creating that cemetery maintenance fund. At that point, what happens to that money? Lapses to the general fund. Trust funds never lapse to the general fund. So that's why those two buckets of money have to be segregated. The public money that funds these things and the private money. So I hope that makes sense because when I was teaching this at the AG's office, there was a lot of confusion from people about what are called general fund trusts, and that's your 3119A trust. So that makes sense to everyone? And those funds are also held by the trustees of trust funds. Trustees of trust funds also hold school district funds. I know this may sound odd, but if someone's giving unanticipated funds or charitable funds to a school district, those are held, again, by your trustees of trust funds. They don't determine how the money is expended. They are simply the custodians of that money to make sure it's properly invested. So all towns have to have a board of trustees of trust funds. Generally speaking, there are 3 of them, although some towns may have as many as 5. You also can have up to 2 alternate members, and they're appointed for a period of 1 year. And I've just finished 1 year as an alternate member. We have Tom Clow here, who's also an alternate member. Now, we're required to elect our trustees. Cities are permitted by city charter to do something a little bit different, but again, we're not a city, we're required to elect them. Trustees are organized by electing one of their members as bookkeeper, and that person keeps the records and so forth. I'm glad to say Linda Fiala does a marvelous job at that. I don't know what we'd do without her. So she keeps all the records, and when we have our meetings once a month, she presents all of the information to us so we can take a look at it and authorize any expenditures that need to take place. Vacancies are filled by the Board of Selectmen, just like you do on many, many other boards. So when we're talking about proper administration of trust funds, one of the things the trustees have to do is to retain copies of all the trust instruments, because we don't know what donor intent is unless we have a document in front of us. The donor may say, this is what I want done with my money, and we are required to do that. Under the New Hampshire Trust Code, our legislature has actually put this in granite. They have said that donor intent is paramount. So when a donor gives money, we're required to carry out that donor's intent. Now, perpetual care funds, and this is where we always get snagged up. Perpetual care funds, which are those funds that are set up for individual graves, and we certainly went through the Cypre process, and I'll go through that very quickly. The Supreme Court of New Hampshire has ruled on 3 separate occasions. Those are charitable trusts. That means that donor intent controls. So what's the donor intent? The donor intent is, I want that money used to take care of my lot, my stone, whatever happens to be there. We went to court under something called a petition for Cypre. What that means is we're changing the purpose of a fund as near as possible to the original intent of the donor. And that's exactly what we did. So under the Cypre doctrine, and this, in 1995 is when we went to the probate court to have the excess money freed up for general cemetery maintenance. What it meant is we had way more income in the perpetual care funds than we could ever spend on those graves. And so we said to the probate court, because charitable trusts can only be changed by the courts, cannot be changed by the legislature. So we said to the judge of probate, we've got way too much money. This is a waste of money because we're never going to be able to spend it on these graves. Can we use it for general cemetery maintenance? And the court said, yes, you can. So from that point forward, as you all know, we have what we call Cypre money. Now, Cypre money cannot be used for anything except cemeteries. That's it, nothing else. And it has certainly helped us with fixing up a lot of our cemeteries, making sure that they're in a dignified condition. I think it's wonderful that we did that. When we're talking about the expenses of trustees, understand that those expenses are called incidental town charges. In other words, if the trustees of trust funds have expenses, they cannot take them out of the trust funds. They have to get them from the general fund of the town, just as any other department, police, fire, whatever it happens to be. And if we needed a budget, we would come before this board and say, we need a budget to pay for a filing cabinet or folders or whatever it is we needed. So it might, I don't know if we have a line item. I haven't looked at the general operating budget recently. But I said that's where the money comes from. So what else do the trustees do? They receive the money when you've accepted it. They administer the money to make sure the donor's intent is carried out. But probably the most important thing the trustees do is invest the money. And by law, the trustees are required to have an investment policy and to submit that investment policy to the Attorney General's office every single year. This is to make sure that, quite frankly, trustees of trust funds know what they're doing. Now, when I say an investment policy, I'm talking about our privately donated funds. And trustees can invest in almost anything when it comes to privately donated funds, because there's not the concern about losing the value of that particular money as there is with taxpayer money. So when we're talking about investing capital reserve funds or general fund trusts, there are only certain things the trustees can invest in. Savings and loans, banks, state of New Hampshire bonds, U.S. Treasury and government bonds, the public deposit investment pool. So it's very limited into very safe things because the trustees should not be losing the taxpayers' money. Now, it's possible to combine all of these capital reserve funds together to get more money in the investment, but you have to keep very careful records about what is the heavy equipment highway fund, what's, this fund and that fund, to make sure that the interest that goes to each of those funds is proportionate to the amount they have in that investment. And again, there has to be investment policy for that. So when we're talking about all this investing, this can be kind of expensive because brokers and so forth charge money. So where does that money come from? Well, bank and brokerage fees can be paid directly from the trust funds when we're talking about just the private money that's been given. But if we're talking about money that is being spent to invest our capital reserve funds, you actually need a vote of town meeting to be able to do that. Because again, you cannot take taxpayer money and spend it without an appropriation or without the permission of town meeting. So in order for our community to be able to pay for this brokerage and investment advice for the capital reserve funds out of those funds, we need a vote. And if it's in the affirmative, then that's in existence for 5 years. At the end of 5 years, it can be rescinded. So private money, it's automatic. That can be paid directly from those funds. Public money, no. Again, that belongs to the taxpayers, and they have to decide whether or not they want to make that expenditure. And as I said, general fund trusts are the same way. They're invested just as capital reserve funds are, because again, that money belongs to the taxpayers. Audit and publication. So all of this stuff is going on. Who are the trustees of trust funds accountable to? Well, first of all, they have to present their books for audit, just as any other town department does, on an annual basis. That has to be done. They have to be able to produce information on their investments, their proper vouchers, everything else that you would imagine is required in an audit. In the old days, we used to have to publish the entire Trustees of Trust Funds report in our town report, and that is very expensive. So the legislature gave us the ability to publish it in summary form rather than having the entire thing. So a lot of communities have voted to do that to save the money. And finally, trustees have to keep a detailed record book. They have to make sure that copies of all the trust instruments are retained permanently, that they know what the donors wanted who gave private money and what the taxpayers said when they voted to set up capital reserve funds and general fund trusts. Because again, trustees are bound by what are known as fiduciary responsibilities, which is the legal obligation to deal with the money in their custody in a certain way. They have to be prudent. They have to make sure they're acting in the best interests of the town or the donor who gave the money. And failure to do that can be a breach of fiduciary responsibility. The MS-9 and MS-10, which are the reports that the trustees of trust funds make out, are sent on an annual basis to the Department of Revenue Administration and to the Attorney General's office. And it's my understanding from speaking with the director, they now have one individual in the Attorney General's office who is responsible for going through each and every one of the MS-9s and 10s. And I know some communities have let me know that they've heard from this individual because they reported something wrong or there was a mistake. So it's something the state takes very, very seriously and something that the trustees should take seriously as well. So that in a nutshell of what the trustees of trust funds do. Any questions from the board that I can answer?
I do have One question, you said that every 5 years they have to readopt to be able to collect the fees, or expend the fees rather, for the capital reserve funds. Do
Correct.
you know the last time we voted on that?
I do not. And that may be something you want to check, because that would certainly save you some money, because the money would be coming directly from the capital reserve funds and not from the general fund.
Well, at least we know if we've, let it go on purpose. not-
Yes, that's exactly right.
And the yearly investment policy that you talked about
Yes.
back on, I think it was slide 30 maybe, is that something you guys develop and sign and send, or how is that done?
Yes, it's something that's developed by, and we, of course, have an investment advisor with Citizens Bank who works with us on all of this. And we've just recently amended our investment strategy. We have what's called an unlimited investment horizon. In other words, the money that we hold, the private money, goes on forever. That helps us to sort of smooth out the peaks and valleys in investing. If you've watched the stock market lately, it's really kind of a roller coaster. But yes, and that's public information. I mean, anybody can have a copy of that. And the trustees' trust funds are subject to RSA 91A, the right to know law. Their records are subject to the right to know law. Again, our meetings are open to the public. Other questions that you may have? One thing I haven't mentioned is budgeting, though, and I think all of you know this, but just in case, I want to mention it. If you're going to be receiving money from any of the trust funds that are held by the trustees, perhaps you're getting some perpetual care money, or you're getting money from something else, you report that, as we all know, to the state of New Hampshire, that the state knows that you have income coming in from a non-tax source. So they're not going to be setting the tax rate based on everything. What they do is they base it on the net. So when you fill out, and they change the numbers of the form so often, it's been so long I don't remember which one it was, but you'll be reporting any private money that you have coming in so that they can net out the amount that they're going to be raising through taxation.
Yeah, I have seen that from Finance Administrator Rouse.
Right, right. So have you learned everything you ever wanted to know about trustees and trust funds?
I learned everything I wanted to know, plus some.
I thought so.
Any questions?
Okay, well, if there's no further questions,
I
thank
really
you very
appreciate
much
it.
for inviting me.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time, and appreciate all the trustees coming out to
Sure.
support this as well. I know you guys work hard to keep our money safe and secure and earning, so thank you for all that you do. Anything else before we move on? Okay. Next on the agenda is department head committee items, and we have Chief Moore here to talk about the police cruiser. So, I think is a general police cruiser discussion, specifically maybe about some high-value repairs. The department had been delaying high-value repairs pending the outcome of the 2025 town vote on Article 10 for a new vehicle, which did not pass. So I think that's what we're going to chat about, correct?
Correct. So this is, obviously, with the vehicle not passing, it was set to replace our vehicle 3, which is a 2017 Dodge Charger. We sent it, after the town vote, we sent it to Mark Phillips for a repair estimate. It came back at $9,665.44. However, some of those items need to be removed because they're in my general maintenance budget. Replacing the wipers, we replace the wipers on our own. We get the parts from Napa, so that's already in my budget, so we remove that $40. New tires also in the budget, so that's $696. So that brings the repair estimate to $8,929.44. GPW could possibly do some of this work to include a brake flush, replace differential fluid, but there's a headlight assembly replacement estimated at $2,558.50. We can check with DPW. I don't know what the cost of the part was, but that large of an item is not in my budget, and since the vehicle should have been replaced as it's beyond its useful life cycle, and I don't budget for large items like that. So possible DPW work is $2,802.38, although some of that would need to be used to obtain parts. So I'm looking for approval up to $8,929.44, and the actual cost may be lowered based on the DPW involvement. Now funding, there is no funding in a line item in my budget, but there is funding in my bottom line budget. We've had a vacancy since January 1st. We have a candidate in the application assessment process, but he won't be completed within the next month at the earliest. One officer vacancy, according to our finance director, is valued at $122,719 with pay and benefits. Having the vacancy for 3 months has saved $30,679.75. Each additional month is a savings of $10,226.58. So I'm looking to use that offset in funding to repair vehicle 3, as it is a safety issue not to have our minimum vehicles, which is 7.
And you have vehicle 6?
So vehicle 6 is a separate issue. We replaced vehicle 6 last year. When it was involved in a crash, we finalized the numbers. The total cost to replace vehicle 6 was $61,128.86. And that's a good number to know, because once we get fully implement it with a vehicle program where we're providing 1 vehicle a year, that's about what we'll be paying rather than $85,000 a year, because we'll be able to recycle a lot of equipment. We were reimbursed by Primex, which is the insurance company, for $53,196.78. So the actual cost to replace the vehicle was $7,932.08. Last year's Board of Selectmen approved funds from the sale of 2 PD vehicles at White Farm, and we received $16,600, which was going to be used to offset the warrant article cost for a new vehicle. Those funds were redirected to offset the cost for obtaining a replacement vehicle for vehicle 6 due to the accident. So we have a balance of $8,667.92 that I would ask to be re-reserved to offset next year's warrant article for a new patrol vehicle. So 2 requests in that.
So the balance from the White Farm after paying for
The repairs.
what we approved
Replacement.
earlier, the balance is 8,667.92, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. And the Primax is 53,196.78. Does that include the $1,000 that we have to
Yes.
pay for the deductible? Okay. I know you guys are probably still working on whether we can get that back. But that's a separate discussion when that happens.
So Primex determined it to not be at fault. State police determined it to be at fault, so I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Okay.
But Officer McGuire received a letter he was not at fault in that accident, so I would imagine Primex should possibly be reimbursing us.
Okay. But we'll deal with that when it
Yes.
happens.
It's a conundrum.
Okay. Any questions for Chief?
Not at this moment.
So what you're looking for is, on Vehicle 3, an authorization to proceed, or do you do that on your own because of the dollar amount?
Correct.
Which was it?
An authorization to proceed using funds out of my bottom line budget, which would be available due to the vacancy. It'll be assigned a budget line, but at the end of the year, I will be over on that budget line due to this repair.
Right. Okay. Anyone like to make a motion to?
I have a question.
I got a,
Oh, I'm sorry.
The Primex number, does that include the check that we just got?
Yes. Wait, yes, that's total
'Cause
for
we got-
the 7 or 8,000.
We got
Yes.
7,800.
Yes, that's total.
I've got a,
Is that part of
Wait.
your 53? No. Is it not? That's not part of your $53,000. We just got a check from them for our $7,800.
She may be right now that because the
No.
vehicle was 53.
Right.
Yep, so table that, if you wouldn't mind. Let me go back with Beth and update the numbers.
Okay. Did you have a question on 6 that was other than that, or on 3?
3.
Okay.
No rush on 6 anyway, luckily. Thank you very much. Good catch.
Just last week, we're presented with a way to fund our budget gap due to the default budget, being that we take the first 3 months of unspent money due to open positions throughout the town, which covered our budget shortfall. So we can't let you use that same 3 months, because we've already essentially we've already used it. Townwide to help cover the shortfall with the budget. I mean, it looks like you're only, what an officer cost you a month, you're talking about less than a month anyway to cover this,
Correct.
which would be, what, April,
May,
May?
I think it'd be May.
May 1st, because we'd have to
Maybe May.
encumber all
May
of
1st.
April.
That's what I meant, end of
Yeah,
April, so
yeah.
May 1st. So would you be comfortable in saying that this would be that fourth month of the year to do this and not?
So it is a safety issue. If we ever have to respond to a critical incident, 7 are the number of vehicles that we need to handle that incident. If we don't have 7 vehicles, we can't get officers to the scene, which compromises the safety of officers on the scene. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying you
I
have to
would-
wait,
I
I'm not
would
saying you have
say-
to wait till then. I'm just saying, as far as your budget process, that you don't try to use the savings and from your office pay until after, say, starting June 1st.
so I can project I'll have at least another $10,226.58 from having that vacancy in April. I'm sure that's not getting filled in April. It'll be May at the very earliest. He's still in background. So, if that's what you're asking.
It is.
Okay. So yes, I am comfortable at least having a offsetting fund within a month. Bottom line budget.
Yeah, the total that she said that she's projecting for the year to be under is 111,000. So it's still under, even with spending the 8,900.
Right, 89,000. Oh, this 8,900, yeah.
Yeah, 8,900. I don't know if that's what I said, but that's what I meant, 8,900. So, does that answer your question?
Well, yeah.
Okay, between those two, any other questions for the chief?
No, we don't really need a motion, do we?
I don't know.
As long as it's within.
Usually we do a motion over 5,000, but,
Well, this is all split up into a whole bunch of different little
Well,
amounts.
I think he's after just vehicle 3, because I
Right.
threw a wrench in 6, no pun intended,
Yes.
do a check
Right.
at it.
8929 for 3.
yeah. He's looking for 89,2944 to fix,
Up to.
Up to.
Up to.
You okay with the motion, Benj?
Yeah, I don't care. I think
Okay.
it's broke down so much, I don't need one, but we'll make one, I guess, that makes everybody feel better.
Okay. I would accept a motion to expend up to
Ask to
8,000.
Have DPW do what, look into the headlight assembly and stuff. 'cause-
Yep. 3 items. 3 items at DPW.
Right, yeah, just, the shops mark, that's how you make money, you mark up parts, so if DPW or yourself can order a headlight assembly without a 25% markup, that would help out.
Anything
Go
else?
ahead, sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm just trying to move things along, so apologize. Didn't mean to speak over you. I would accept a motion to expend up to $8,929.44 for the repair of Vehicle 3 from Chief Moore's bottom line budget for 2025. Thank you, Selectman Drury. Would anyone like to second that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Selectman Fillmore. Any further discussion? All in favor say yes or yay?
Yes.
Yes. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did have one follow-up question regarding the detail funds, just a question, because I didn't watch the original meeting. What's the basis for putting the information out there, would just be my only follow-up question, as they aren't public funds. They come from a private vendor.
Yeah, Selectman Bloom was the one who was involved in the discussion when it came to the CBA negotiations. So
Okay.
he has that action to
Okay, I'll follow up with him, just to
better out all that, so.
see what the, or
If
if
I-
Pamela wants to
Yeah,
inform
if
me.
I said something, I would probably get it incorrect, and I don't wanna
No problem.
do that. So it's not that I don't wanna share the information with you, there's some nuances there that he understood.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, I just haven't watched the meeting, so I wasn't familiar with it, so, thank you.
thank you. Okay, to move on to committee appointments. Last year in 2024, the Board of Selectmen talked to all the new and reappointed candidates for boards, committees, and commissions. I personally felt this was beneficial to me to get to know the volunteers. This year, last week, we talked about only talking to the new appointee nominees. So even after tonight's discussion, assuming that there are decisions made, there's still going to be boards in town with openings, full-time members, full-time members, alternate members, and then there are still boards with absolutely no members whatsoever. So if anyone out there listening is interested in getting involved, please reach out to the chair of the board, reach out to Town Administrator Bolton, go onto our website. We would welcome your participation. So tonight we have 3 people to talk to, Ron Gilman and Randy Dixon for Parks and Rec, and Ray LeMay for Planning Board. So proceed in the order of the agenda. Yeah, okay. So Parks and Rec is first, and we've got Ron Gilman here. I'll remind everybody, at least to remind all of us, that last year we made appointments to Parks and Rec for 1 year, simply to allow them to set up time to approve their bylaws. And we did not know how many members they would have in terms of number or number of alternates. So if I recall last week's discussion properly, Selectman Drury, they're nearly done. We've seen a draft. Those are going to be signed off, I believe, next week, or at least brought to us for sign-off next week, correct?
Yeah, they were,
Okay.
yep,
Yep.
they were distributed.
And the number of proposed members is 6 and up to 7 alternates. Am I recalling that correctly as well?
I believe that is correct.
Okay, great. So we do have folks, positions available for full members. So, thanks for coming in, Ron.
Yeah, not a problem. Happy to be here.
This is kind of informal, but we do have a couple questions for you.
Go for it.
Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your background and why you'd like to be on the Parks and Rec Commission.
So my name's Ron Gilman. I've lived in town practically my whole life. Bounced back, came back, left, came back. But besides the point, I see a need to get the community involved. Last year I noted that the Parks and Rec held a movie theater at the Chase Park. I thought that was really cool, but that was like the only time, and there just isn't a lot going on for young kids. I have a 6-year-old son. There's not a lot, going on in town. The library hosts a few things. Years ago, there used to be the ice fishing derby on Lake Horace. One of my dreams would bring that back. I know funding is a big thing. Just trying to help and be in the community that helped raise me. I want to give back.
Okay. Have you put any thought into whether you wanted to be a full member or an alternate member? They're both pretty much the same time commitments as I think they explained to you in the park meeting the other night.
It really wasn't. I'd be interested in a full member. I don't see why I'd need to be an alternate if there's positions open that need to be filled. I'm here.
Do you have time to regularly attend the meetings? I believe on some parts of the year, they meet weekly or every 2 weeks, and then most of the time it's once a month.
Yeah, I'll make sure I have that time allotted.
Okay. What do you have?
Can't say that I have anything specific. You had mentioned a lot in the park meeting about some of the ideas that you might have had, like
Yeah.
some of the past things that that park used to do.
Yeah, so like I said, past things that the park used to do, I mean, we used to do the fishing derby. I mean, I was a small child then. You know, maybe we could try and figure out, funding to do a summertime derby to help fund the parks and rec to get more funding. You know, there's numerous things that can be done, and I'm just here to help bring ideas and be a part of change, young face in the game. And, I don't plan on leaving the town anytime soon or ever. I love it here, but just want to do my part somewhere and try and help.
Yep. The other things that we've done, having s'more nights on,
Yeah.
in the winter, or just campfires on the beach.
Yep.
They don't have to be expensive, just to have something for kids to come out to
Correct.
to have fun.
Yep.
What do you gentlemen have?
Oh, no, I always appreciate anybody who wants to sign up and volunteer for a town, board or committee, so appreciate you putting your name in the hat. And
The hat was small.
I usually ask this of all the candidates, unless Mr. Fillmore has something.
No.
No? Okay. Do you have any business interests or personal conflicts which might impact your ability to make decisions which are solely in the best interest of the town?
No.
Okay. Okay. All right. What we've been doing in the past is talking to both of the candidates before we make any nominations for appointments, so
Okay.
If you want to stick around, you're more than welcome to.
Okay. Thank you.
Right,
Thank you. Andy? How are you this evening?
I'm well, thank you. Randy Dixon.
And are you interested in being a full member or an alternate member?
full
Does it
member.
matter? Okay, full. All right. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to serve on the Parks and Rec
Yeah, we've
Commission?
lived in town for 33, 34 years. My kids grew up learning to swim at Chase Park. I've coached Little League and soccer. I was a soccer director at WAC for many, many years. I'm still involved with them. I referee a lot of their soccer games. I put lines down on the soccer fields. I mentor young kids who want to be soccer referees, and I mentor adults who want to be soccer coaches. My son, growing up, was a skateboarder, so I'm a little bit familiar with that scene. So, we've used the facilities a lot, and I've got the time, and I think the energy to give back and, help make a success of the Parks and Rec.
What do you have?
I will add, before we moved here, I was on the Parks and Recs in the town that we came from. Little different scale, little different things. We had swimming pools and soccer fields and softball fields and all that kind of stuff. Playgrounds, wooden playgrounds, very much like the one at Bolton Field. So I'm familiar with that and familiar with how these committees and boards work.
Oh, good. What town was that, may I ask?
I lived in Amherst, Massachusetts.
Okay. Yeah, they have a lot more Parks and Rec than we do.
It was an interesting thing.
Glad you were able to escape.
Yes.
No, we're always looking forward to having people with different ideas on the board to come up with different ways of doing the same thing or something completely different as well.
Yeah, well, I think what Ron said about doing more things out in, the public, it's people to see the Parks and Recs, and maybe then when we go to get money for a commissioner or something to pay, that, will be seen as providing some value, and that may help in that kind of thing, because, money's the problem.
What do you gentlemen have?
I'll just echo, thank you for volunteering. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Anything?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any business interests or personal conflicts which might impact your ability to make decisions that are solely in the best interest of the town?
No, like I said, I do referee games for WAC, and I'm a little bit involved in that. I also referee games for the middle school, but I don't think that that would be a conflict.
I think the only conflicts would be the use of the fields, and when two different teams want to use it at the same time.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
That
not
is a-
exactly the kind I was asking about, but that is a big conflict that you're gonna have to deal with, yes.
yeah. Well, and, yeah.
I think they
and
do a
cer-
great job of doing it, but, you know, it is something that routinely comes up.
Yeah, the fields are certainly a problem. The East Road thing is something that hopefully we can get a good solution to for everyone. Anything else?
Not for me.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so before we get on to the planning board, can we wrap this one up? Are you guys okay with that?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So as far as current members go, we have David Lundin, Denise, Matt Beeler, Kyle Cleveland. Are those the four?
Yeah, the recommendation I got from Denise was put these two gentlemen on as 1 year, and then next year they would go to 29 as a 3-year, and that keeps your 2-year, 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 because Matt is up for reappointment and wants to be reappointed, and he's gonna take Pam's spot, because Pam's not going to anymore. And then Kyle would be reappointed, so that's 2 at 28, 2 at 27, and 2 at 26, and the ex officio.
Okay. All right, and so 4 plus these two makes the 6. Am I doing the math properly?
You're-
Yep, okay,
Yes.
all right. So we do have 2 full member availables, not alternates, okay. All right, so anyone want to work on motions for Ron or Randy? Or would you like me to start out?
How about if I make a motion that we appoint both Ronnie and Randy as full members for 1 year?
Okay, and before we move forward with that, I want to ask one more clarifying question, if we may. These require the background check, correct?
Well, we went through that last year, and we didn't have Matt or Kyle do it, but we had,
Oh,
We
based
had
on our
Denise.
discussion last week, that's why I'm asking.
I don't, this, just to clarify,
Okay,
it says they're gonna be directly in contact with the children, which was Parks and Rec personnel, directly working around children, library personnel, directly working with or handling money, which is town clerk, tax collector, finance, or volunteers having to enter residence like the building inspector, assessors, and welfare. I think your director will,
okay,
that's just I don't think they're gonna be working directly with the children.
okay, all right,
I would concur with that. that.
Okay.
It's indirect if at all, yeah.
okay. So then we would not need to make any amendments to that. I just want to make sure
Yeah, that's
before we
fine, yeah.
got too far. All right, thank you. All right, so Selectman Fillmore has made a motion to appoint Ron Gilman and Randy Dixon to members of the Ware Parks and Rec Commission for a 1-year term. Would anyone like to second that?
Second.
Made by Selectman Fillmore, seconded by Selectman Knapp. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say yes or yea.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Motion passes 4-0 for both Ron and Randy together. So I think we have some paperwork to sign. They have paperwork to sign.
Yep, you wanna do them all together? You got one more to do?
Yep, I was just saying, do we want to do the oaths later tonight as well?
One of these two guys. can.
Okay, all right, all right. Okay, that brings us to planning board, and we have Ray LeMay here. Come on up. Mr. Lemay is known to many of us because he served on the Conservation Commission for many years. And you still have an appointment to the Conservation Commission through 2027, correct?
Yep.
Do you plan on asking us for both?
Yep.
Keeping on the conservation? Okay. All right, appreciate that. So maybe you can give us a little bit about your background and tell us why you want to be on the planning board.
Okay, well, I was born and raised in Goffstown, so I live on River Road now, 10 miles from where I was born and raised, so I figure I've been a local all my life. And as far as background, I have been a developer, I've been a home builder, I've been in earth moving business, we've owned gravel pits, pretty much anything that has to do with construction I've done. So I started when I was 17 years old, bought my first backhoe when I was 17. Found out I couldn't legally operate it till I was 18, but had one. And so through the years, we've done all that. So I feel that I can understand what developers are thinking and looking for when they come for a review. And so, because I've been there, I've been one of them. And I fully understand how planning should go. So I've never been interested in any political stuff until the past few years, and I don't know why. Since I've gotten on the Conservation Commission, I've started looking at all the selectmen meetings. I watch every one. I watch every planning board meeting, zoning meeting. Some things I agree with, some things I don't, but that's pretty much what everybody else is doing. So I just feel compelled that I'd like to be on the planning board because I believe it's a very important board for the town. I realize the state is going to have some say in the near future of what we might or might not be able to do, but in spite of that, I think we can still steer things in the right direction. And that's my main reason. I don't have any one particular reason. I just feel like I'm compelled that I want to be involved.
Okay. What questions do you gentlemen have?
I know what you do, but what does your business do now, just so the rest of the board kind of...
Now we do erosion control strictly. So we manufacture silt sock for erosion control. We do silt fencing, so I built my own silt fence machine, one of a kind. Nothing else in the world like it, so it makes us very efficient. We designed a lot of the equipment to do the sock that we make. And now we actually even grind our own mulch. It was one question I asked, I don't remember if I asked Naomi and maybe Bruce, if I was allowed to do that in rural agriculture, and it's specifically written that yes, you can have forestry products there. So we grind our mulch to make the sock. It's made, it looks like bark mulch. So we keep everything in-house. I'm not one that I like to control everything. So, so that's what we do. And then we have a big hydro seeder. We have a big hay mulching machine. I think it's the only one in New England that size. So that's what we do. So we work mostly for people like Audley and Andrew, all the big highway contractors. We do all the state work. So if you've been up and down Route 93, that's all us. We seeded from the Mass border all the way up to Exit 5. And we did most of the silt fence in Sauk when that project was going on. We're on Route 3 now. We got 3 contracts on Route 3 that we're doing, so we're all over the place. But that's the business we're in now. We got out of excavation, we got out of the gravel pit, we got out of house building. The only thing I do now is erosion control, so I'm very familiar with how hydrology works and water and the effects of it all. I consult with a lot of the engineers even. We've changed quite a few state specs on our behalf because I proved to them that we had better methods. So I've done that. I have a septic license. I haven't put in a septic in years, but I still kept my license. To all that, anything construction, that's what we do. But now it's just strictly erosion control as my business.
I certainly know that he would know how to read a set of plans or have constructive input on a big project, so I think he'd be a benefit. And again, I appreciate you signing up for yet another busy board, those are two big committees to be part of, so.
Yeah.
They are. You mentioned your businesses already, but do any of those interests or personal conflicts prevent you from making decisions that are based on what's best for the town?
I don't believe my business, the way it is, does. I don't have any agendas against anything or anyone in town. I don't specifically market to anything in town. You know, the town could buy my silt sock for erosion control or whatnot, or have us hydro seed, but I don't ask. I don't care. They know I'm there. I know Benji has bought some stuff from us for the town of New Boston, but I don't solicit. We got plenty of work. We don't need
It's
to.
a good problem.
Yeah, we got more than we sometimes want. So, but yeah, that's about it.
The state of New Hampshire, specifically the Office of Planning and Development, has online training courses for planning and zoning boards. Are you familiar with any of that? Have you looked at it?
I've heard about it, I haven't looked into it. So
Okay.
if you have a link or something, I can
Yeah, they actually
certainly-
have a certification test that you can
Yeah.
take too after going through some training, so
Yeah, that would be
you
good.
commit to personally doing that?
Yeah. I do it for stormwater, and I'm sure Bruce is familiar with all of those classes too. And they're very interesting.
Okay.
You can never know enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that doesn't hurt, right?
No.
I don't think, that's the way I feel about training, but I might not be in the minority, or I might not be in the majority on that. I might be in the minority, but, okay. Any further questions for Mr. Lemay?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. So office, membership on the planning board is dictated by New Hampshire RSA 673, specifically 673:2, 2A. That dictates that 1 officio and 4 appointed members, and we have 3 appointed members currently, correct? Okay, all right. So, Mr. Francisco, Mr. Bolton, and Mr. Stockhouse are the 3. And then during the last planning board meeting, which was last Thursday, Chair Francisco verbally asked me if Ray Menard could be moved from alternate to full member. So, I was sitting next to Mr. Menard, and he said, I asked him if he would be willing to do that, and he said, yeah. So, those 2 discussions were verbal. So, we have the ability to change Mr. Menard to full member or appoint Mr. Lemay, but the request from the planning board is coming down as Mr. Menard, going in as full, because he's been on the board, I assume, but that's an assumption on my part. So the other thing we need to worry about is a statutory limitation that planning board members, according to 673-7, there's a limit of 1 appointed planning board member, full or alternate, no difference, to also serve on the Conservation Commission. So none of the other planning board members sit on the Conservation Commission, so it would be clear for Mr. Lemay to do that. So just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that. I think we're okay. So 2 questions. How do you want to proceed with Mr. Menard? Do you want a signed form, or okay to go on the verbal request that I got from Chair Francisco? And would anyone like to make a motion for Ray?
Well, I'll move that that Ray serves on planning board as an alternate for 3 years, expiring in 2028.
I'll second that.
Okay. Moved by Selectman Knapp and seconded by Selectman Fillmore. Any further discussion? All in favor, say yes or yay.
Yes.
Yes?
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Motion passes 4-0-0. And what about Ray Menard?
What was the question for that again?
We had a verbal request to change him from alternate to full member. Are we okay proceeding on a verbal request? He's already signed all the paperwork. We would just have to get these minutes to show.
Be appointed in 24, at the end of 24, or in 24 for 3 years.
Right.
And then when Bruce took Selectmen, that left an open seat. So there's 2 alternates. And one of the alternates wasn't there, but the Ray was probably the senior alternate, because he's been on the longest, and they did ask him. And I think all you need to do is move him to a full member, so that their next meeting, they can elect officers.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, I guess.
He doesn't need to do another.
Right, he
His
doesn't-
term would stay at 27.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll make a motion, we upgrade Mr. Menard's membership from alternate to a full member to fulfill his term until 2027.
Okay. Anyone like to second that?
Second?
Thank you. Moved by Selectman Fillmore, seconded by Selectman Drury. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say yes or yay?
Yes.
Yes? Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Motion passes 4-0-0. So now we have some paperwork.
We have it all done.
I'm sorry?
Is somebody, you gonna swear him in now?
If one of these guys want to do it, I'll be glad to do it. I mean, I'd be glad to do it tonight.
Yeah.
If otherwise, they can go to the town clerk,
I
but
do. If
I
you
don't wanna
want,
change my words, do I?
all you have to
Did it to me
do,
on- Ricky did that to me, the fire chief, gave me the wrong one.
if you do I, and you could do them together, and then I can get them to do the paperwork if you want, because you're gonna handle the rest of these by just a motion.
I believe so, yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
I.
we'll get
You
to
could
that
have all
next.
three of them together if you wanted. And then you guys will have to do paperwork with me after, but, all right, you got it? I, state your name. The name's already there.
Got it?
What we gotta do, because one's planning board, the.
Yeah, well, they can say their own, they can say their own committee.
No, you gotta remember what you're running for now. All right.
You're gonna raise your hand.
All right, I state your names.
I, Ronald Gilman, Jr.
Do solemnly and sincerely swear
Do solemnly and sincerely swear
and affirm that I will faithfully and impartially
and affirm that I will faithfully and
discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon me
discharge and perform all the duties upon me
as a
member
as a member of Parks and Rec.
alternate,
As an alternate planning board member.
all right, for a term of 3 years.
No.
All 3 years?
1 and 3.
All right, for a term of 3 years?
For a term of 3 years.
Year one.
You're 1 and you're
for a term of
For a term of 1 year.
All right.
This is going well.
Yes, move, no. According to the best of my abilities,
According to the best of my abilities.
agreeable to the rules and regulations of this Constitution
Agree with the rules and regulations of this Constitution.
and the laws of the state of New Hampshire, so help me God.
The laws of the state of New Hampshire, so help me God.
Thank you. I told you we should do it one at a time.
That's all right.
You want to do that 3 times?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so
think it
let's
would've been
do,
easier. Thank you very much.
So,
I'm used to messing it up.
Oh, you have the most practice now.
Yeah, I do.
you sign here, and then you have to sign here. And then you have to sign.
Can't complain much.
Thank you.
Oh. It says print.
Just, go ahead, just today's date, 3/31. Okay, and then you're done.
There.
Okay, you're done. Thank you. Randy, I'll take yours next.
Now I can go.
You can go.
Thank you very much.
Randy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too, thanks. Yeah, it's just the top one. And there'll be 2 more coming.
And is your ethics, go to ethics. So you print your name,
Yep.
and then you sign it, and then you date it. Now you two, Ray already knows the drill, but you two will get town emails. I'll set those up for you, and then you'll be part of the Park and Rec group.
Yep.
So I'll send you a separate email with your password for you to get on, okay?
Okay.
Once I get it from IT.
Is it the 30th?
31, last day, maybe.
I'm retired, I have no idea what day it is.
Every day's a Saturday. Okay.
We're all set?
Yep, you're all set.
Thank you.
And another one? And,
No. No.
And this is the new form that we just talked about with the volunteers. I'm gonna flip yours over. Can you print?
Yes,
Okay, print, sign, date.
There we go.
All right, you have to also sign, because you swore him
Oh,
in.
because I did this. I did all the
Yeah,
cussing.
goes back that way.
Oh, yeah. Thought you were gonna be a doctor as a kid.
Oh.
31, keep going.
Okay, yeah, I'm just 20,
Yeah.
25.
Okay, you're good.
I don't do that much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Yep. All right, last one, sorry.
Can't read either, so.
You'll remember the right one next time?
Yeah.
Sorry, there's one more down there.
Yep.
It's working its way through.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, do we have forms for all the rest of the reappointments?
I'm gonna put them together with Pam, because the only one I'm gonna, Matt Uri is my concern, because he has a meeting tomorrow night. Is that a problem? Just asking. Tomorrow night's zoning night.
Well, we can make the motion and they can sign the forms, then we can sign the forms.
Well, the idea was I was gonna work between Pam,
Yeah.
because a lot of them come in Wednesday night.
Yeah.
But that's Wednesday night, not tomorrow night. So do you guys have an issue with that, him serving tomorrow night
No.
as one night? Yeah, you can, our plan was to make the motion, and then we would get them between the ex officios on the committee, because I'll be at most of them,
Right.
or through Pam.
Okay, all right. Okay, just take them one board at a time?
Yep.
All right, so this is, the sheet, I don't know if you guys have that, she passed out earlier, that's what I'm working off of. I will accept a motion to reappoint Sherry Burdick, Tom Flaherty, and Mike Zinkowitz to 3-year terms expiring in 2027 for the Cemetery Advisory Committee.
2-year terms.
I'm sorry, I didn't say that?
No.
Two-year terms.
I'll make a motion to appoint Sherry Burke, Tom Flaherty, and Mike Zinkowski to 2-year terms to the Cemetery Advisory Committee expiring 2027.
Okay, moved by Selectman Fillmore, anyone like to second that?
Second?
Seconded by Selectman Drury, any discussion? All in favor say yes or yay?
Yes.
Yes. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, motion passes 4-0-0 for that one. Conservation Commission, there are 2 reappointments to consider. Steve Najar and Sherry Burdick, both for 3-year terms expiring in 2028. So I'd accept a motion to reappoint Steve Najar and Sherry Burdick for 3-year terms expiring 2028 to the Conservation Commission.
So
Anyone
moved.
Moved by Selectman Drury. Anyone like to second?
Sure, second.
Okay, moved by Selectman Drury, seconded by Selectman Knapp. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor say yes or yay? Yes?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Motion passes 4-0 on that one. Parks and Rec, we have two, both are 3 years. I would accept a motion to reappoint Kyle Cleveland and Matt Beeler for 3-year terms to Parks and Rec, expiring 2028. Would anyone like to move that?
So moved.
Thank you, Selectman Drury. Would anyone like to second?
Second.
Thank you, Selectman Knapp. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say yes or yay? Yes? Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Motion passes 4-0. We have one reappointment for Danny Jean Stewart to the Planning Board as an alternate for a 3-year term expiring in 2028.
I'll make a motion to reappoint Danny Jean Stewart as an alternate to the planning board for 3 years, expiring 2028.
Okay, moved by Selectman Fillmore. Anyone like to second?
Second.
Seconded by Selectman Knapp. Any discussion? All in favor, say yes or yay?
Yes.
Yes? Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Motion passes 4-0. Okay, zoning board, we have one, Matt Uri, for a member for 3 years expiring in 2028 for the zoning board. Anyone like to move that?
I so move.
Thank you, Selectman Fillmore. Anyone like to second?
Second.
Thank you, Selectman Knapp. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say yes or yay?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Motion passes 4-0. We have one library trustee alternate, 1-year term expiring in 2026, so this would be Kate Bloom for library trustee alternate, 1 year expiring 2026. Would someone like to move that?
So moved.
Thank you, Selectman Drury. Anyone like to second?
Second.
Thank you, Selectman Knapp. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say yes or yay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Motion passes 4-0. We have two for trustee of the trust funds, both as alternates, Thomas Clow and Terry Knowles. Again, both alternates, 1-year position expiring 2026 for trustee of the trust funds. Would anyone like to move that?
I will.
Okay, thank you, Selectman Fillmore. Anyone like to second?
Second.
Thank you, Selectman Knapp. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say yes or yay? Yes? Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, that one also passes 4-0. Okay. And Energy Commission we'll talk about soon, after they make a presentation on their bylaws. Okay, all caught up with all that. That was painless. Okay. So I think that then brings us to the discussion on Article 25 on the agenda, correct? Yes. Okay. So after receiving the Mildred Hall information last Monday, again, thank you, T.A. Bolton, I updated the report and sent out draft 2 on Tuesday, March 25th. And when we met last week, we said we would review it tonight and see if there are any changes. So hopefully you've all had a chance to review it and be prepared to discuss it this evening. So just as a reminder, the 2024 town vote, Article 25, they had a citizen petition on that warrant in March of 2024, and that warrant petition read, to see if the town will vote to study restricting eligibility for appointed positions to town boards and committees to 2 consecutive terms, which shall include any part of a term served and shall remain ineligible for the next succeeding 3 years. The article did pass. So I'll open it up to discussion on draft 2. Anybody?
Well, I liked it.
All right.
I thought it was pretty thorough.
Well, I tried to outline the approach we took at the back, kind of give the bottom line up front, and then detailed process at the end. But as far as discussion points, we can start from the detailed process. We went through all the appointed positions. Elected positions were out of scope because we talked about appointed positions in the warrant petition article. We did consult with legal after the vote passed, and they said there's really no definition of what a study must contain, who should perform it, or even if it is presented anywhere. There's no money appropriated for it, but that does not prohibit Board of Selectmen or paid staff from working on it. We just couldn't pay anybody else because it didn't appropriate funds. Not aware of any other towns that have these kinds of non-statutory limits in membership and appointments. We did ask NHMA, which is the New Hampshire Municipal Association, for advice. Their response was that if the state sets the qualifications for office, the town is not allowed to further restrict qualifications by imposing something like term limits. We ran that response back by town council, and our legal concurred with that guidance provided by NHMA. We did ask Primates, who is our insurance carrier, and they assist us with risk assessments on things as well, and their response was to talk to legal and NHMA, which we'd already initiated. T.A. Bolton went through the listserv and checked with the other town administrators through the forum and asked if there were any towns doing this kind of restriction, and only one town replied. And they said they had a petition article that would limit selectmen to 3 consecutive terms, and per their legal counsel, it was not enforceable. They didn't provide any specifics on the year, and we did no further research because the information provided was consistent with the information we had learned from other sources. We did generate that list of town boards, committees, and commissions, identified which state law dictates membership qualifications on those, and researched what our town document said in the bylaws, and if there was an RSA, just looked for any inconsistencies and did not find any. So that was the process we went through. And most of that work was done mid-last year. We'd been waiting on the Mildred Hall information, which we got last week, so that was plugged in. So you can break this down into, there's a group of things that cannot be restricted because they're statutorily dictated what the membership requirements are, and that would be the Planning Board, the Zoning Board of Appeals, Conservation Commission, Parks and Rec Commission, Energy Commission, and the Historic Commission, Heritage Commission, and Agricultural Commission, with those last 3 being inactive. But should they be reignited in the future, that would be applicable to them. The things that could be restricted would be the Finance Committee, and it already does have term restrictions in its bylaws.
What are they again?
2 terms, I believe, 2, 3 years, and then they have to have at least a 1-year break.
Okay, I thought so, okay, thank you.
Cable Committee, they're in the process of generating bylaws, so they don't know yet if they even have anything in their bylaws. Cemetery Trustee Advisory, that's the advisory committee we generated last year in 2024. They do have bylaws. It does not contain any restrictions on term limits. Capital Improvements is a subcommittee of the Planning Board. It's not one that this board appoints. Current bylaws do not contain restrictions on the length, meaning the number of appointments. It does contain a restriction on the length, 1 year, but it does not contain any restriction on the number of appointments that can be made sequentially. So at the time this was done, the Planning Board was revamping capital improvements. They've since, on Thursday, they've signed it off, but it hasn't been signed off by this board. But the tenure and the consecutive did not change. So I did make sure of that before this evening. So even if we sign that off tonight, later in the meeting, it still doesn't change. It may need to be, those last 2 sentences may need to be rewickered, but other than that, the data is the same. Mildred Hall Advisory Committee, that's the one where we were waiting on the information. I added a little bit more background on this one because there's nothing on the town website yet, at least not to that degree. It's an advisory committee that oversees the financial bequeath of a specific, within specific instructions for use and oversight for funding projects. Membership, the instructions provide are for 3 committee members to be appointed by the Board of Selectmen, with the candidates chosen from the Ware Historical Society members. It was initiated in 2005. The length of the appointments were suggested by the advisory committee to be 3, 4, and 5 years, one of each quantity, and that 3 alternates also be appointed for the same corresponding time length. There are no restrictions that were found on the number of sequential appointments that could be made. So, and then Economic Development Committee, the currently has no membership and no bylaws were found. It is not an active committee, so I stuck that in the bucket of could restrict, since we have nothing that dictates by RSA that there are membership requirements or qualifications. So that's what I think the report looks like, so. Questions, comments, changes?
So where are we supposed to move forward from this, I guess?
Well, assuming that we agree on the report, we can just publish it on the website.
And that fulfills the...
I
that's
think
it?
that fulfills more than our study requirements. We could
Okay.
wait until next week to sign it off.
No,
And
no,
see
I
if
just-
anybody has public comment that they want to make on it next week. Now that we've kind of read the whole report out loud, they know what's in it. So if they have any comments on it, they could come next week. But I can't envision what anybody might say that would change the fact,
Right.
but
I mean, decision on it, we just
Yeah.
did it and you found the facts out, so,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what you'd comment on it. Still could comment on it.
yeah.
Isn't gonna
I don't
change
know.
nothing, still comment.
Right, they can certainly still comment. They can do that even if we do sign it off
Right.
tonight, so. I guess the question I would have is whether we want to change anything related to the CIP, knowing that it's been signed off now. That it wasn't last week when this draft 2 was published, the CIP procedure. So there's 2 sentences in there that says that it's still in the change process.
So should we change those 2 sentences then? Just do as
We
amended?
might want to,
or whatever?
or we might want to circle back to this after we review the CIP document and see if we really do sign it off. That would be the only thing that I could see that might change, but, sometimes you be the one doing the work, you don't see the obvious too. So that's one of the reasons that we have 5 people on this board, so they can all look at it. Plus TA Bolton helps a lot,
Mhm.
so.
Oh, I'm all right with signing off with it, just if there's verbiage we ought to change, we could just amend it and call it good. Since talking it to death, I guess it did. Looks pretty thorough to me.
Well, right now, there is no, the planning board is a CIP, right?
Yeah, but the document that you guys approved in February and Craig signed off, Craig Francisco, Chair Francisco signed off last Thursday, that still has to be signed off by the Board of Selectmen, which I believe we're gonna talk about later in this meeting. It does say that, the membership, how it's selected, 1-year terms, but there's no qualification for, no restriction on sequential appointments. So, all that is still there, but in the report draft 2, it says that that's still being worked on.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the last 2 sentences there in that portion, may want to be changed. So, your thoughts?
I mean, I'm okay changing the wording of this and then, making approvals as amended.
Me too.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so we could easily strike just the last 2 sentences that say, at the time of this writing, the planning board is revamping the capital improvements program subcommittee/procedure when finalized updates to the CIP will be posted under the board section, planning board page of the town website, so.
And once again, there's nothing else in there that needs to be updated.
No.
Okay. Then I would be fine with
I can
striking
strike
those
those last two.
and approve as amended.
Any objections to that?
No?
Okay. So I think I'm the keeper of the document, so I will make those two changes and send it to Naomi, assuming we affirmatively vote. And we want to have this published on the website, is that what we're,
Do you want to put it on letterhead? Would it be a little more,
probably would, yeah. I figured
does it
probably
require your
wanna,
signature or no?
we don't have to, we can just show that we voted on it,
Yeah, okay.
you know.
I think you might just have it with a seal would be
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. So is that what we want to do with it?
Yep.
Just put on the website, under the Board of Selectmen?
That'd be fine.
Okay, all right.
Did it have to be posted out on the board or anything or no?
Well, we certainly can, yeah. There's no reason why we couldn't do that.
Wonder if I could
Post
leave
it
it there
out-
for a
outside the
month or
door here.
something, yeah. That's-
I think it should go in the Where in the World, maybe a full-page article on that.
Yeah, 'cause it'll all run down. Sure you do.
So put on letterhead, put on the website under the Board of Selectmen page, and post on the exterior board here for approximately 1 month.
Sure.
Okay. Are all those things doable? Okay, all right. So I'll accept a motion to approve the 2024 Town Vote Article 25 Study Report as amended this evening as final.
So moved.
Okay. Moved by Selectman Drury. Would anyone like to second that?
Second.
Thank you, Selectman Knapp. Any further discussion? All in favor, say yes or yay?
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Motion passes 4-0-0. Okay. I will get that to Naomi tomorrow, my action. Okay. We have one item on the consent agenda. There is one land use change tax recommended by the assessor for number 201-32-1, and that was in the box for signature. So I think that brings us to the administrator's report.
I handed one around earlier.
Good night.
See you later.
All right, CIP. I do have on my list is the CIP document, as Chair stated, the planning board signed off on there, and it's only got one signature for the Chair of the planning board. I did not scan it and send it. Do you guys all want it scanned and sent to you before I can put it on next week?
It was sent to us. You did send it Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, guess I sent it to you all. Let's see. All right, so I have that on my list. I did play around with, I know it was late this afternoon, I'm not expecting you to have an answer. We talked about the evaluation sample. I did reach out, and as I indicated to you in an email, I got several of them. But the one that I kind of played around with the most was the one that was interactive. And you could go down through all of those and click different things, and it came down to the bottom and it gave you the 2.6 or whatever it was. And in the box next to it gave you an average, above average. It was kind of interesting, but I think you have to play with it first, and then we can alter the categories, we can alter the numbers, you can alter whatever you want. It came actually from the town of Epping. The other ones were somewhat similar, didn't have numbers, they had like big narrative paragraphs that you could use. That just caught my eye if we're looking at maybe drawing the drawing the parallel with a numbering system. You know, it had 1 to 5, and you clicked it off, and then it gave you a number at the end. And then if your number at the end was an evaluation of 3.8, you went over to the side, and between 3 and 4, you were above average, you know what I mean? So I think you then maybe have to figure out, is it a percentage, or you could maybe use it as a percentage, whatever you wanted to do. But I gave it to you just to get started so we don't lose track of it, because we want to get it sooner than later. I did not send you all 9 of them with it. I just sent you kind of the one that I looked at. It was Merrimack. I sent you the email and told you who I got them from. What we didn't do the
I
other
know,
night.
I haven't had a chance to
No,
look at
that's
that
fine.
yet. I don't know if anybody else had any.
I
wanna make
glanced
any
real quick,
comments
and then
Tonight, that's fine.
I didn't really get to see how it was. I had one I meant to pass along, I was gonna send out today and I forgot.
Yep,
I did,
didn't want it to lose track.
yep, no, I did like the general layout of it, but I didn't study it in detail.
Yeah, just click on it and
Yeah.
do an evaluation, see what it looks like.
So I'd recommend we put that as a topic agenda at some point,
Yep.
Yep.
probably after the 14th or after.
Yeah,
Maybe the 21st currently looks kind of light as far as
Yes.
number of
Yep.
items.
sure. I think some of these look worse because they're 4 different things for one
Right.
person. The one thing the other night when we did have the meeting on the 25th, I meant to ask that question, I forgot about, for the field, so I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think we have any new information,
No,
so
either.
April 7th is not likely that we're gonna have a
No.
decision. So
The
we can keep moving that just so we don't lose track of
Yeah,
it,
that's what I
but
was-
I don't,
Yep.
we definitely won't have information next week, as far as I know.
Yeah, and then, so the next, as I said, the next 4 are all Jason's, and I think he sent you the revised final. He was doing it when he was sitting at the desk, I think, during the ice storm.
But
You
I
got a couple
figured,
of them.
yeah.
Parks and Rec, I would, thinking of doing it on the 7th, only to get that behind us. Cyber training, though, you do have 1 hour, so that's gonna kind of,
Yeah, is that at the beginning of the meeting or at the end of the meeting?
I had said it at the beginning.
Okay,
I mean,
that's fine.
I
just
didn't
wanted to know.
ask about the end.
No, I just
I
didn't,
could ask.
no, I just
Okay.
was curious, that's all.
Yeah, all right. So that's all I had, and then the 14th is looking like you've got all the staff for Park and Rec. First quarter, my thought was the personnel policy, we could look at it with the draft. Tax deeding, I've reached out to those 2, they're coming in on the 21st. Cable, I just wanted to let you know a couple things, is after our meeting on Tuesday, they met on Tuesday, so I snuck over there. And they would welcome a liaison if somebody wanted to.
Okay.
The other thing is, they all were handed around in an original draft of the multimedia. It's a big change, so they all wanted to review it, the 3 of them that were there wanted to take a read at it. Andrew had done a nice job putting together it, but they want to take a read at it, review it at their next meeting before coming to us.
Oh,
So,
makes sense.
so this is not going to be the 21st, because I don't know when their
Okay.
meeting is, but I'll keep it on there. It may not be till April, because I don't know when they're going to meet again. Then I just left on the bridge, the forum, the handyman, we can talk about it sometime. Right to know, I think I forwarded you all, the answer that we got from them with the video, and then he suggested also handing out, there was a handbook, was it?
An NHMA presentation, yeah, I think it's, I don't know what it's technically called.
So as a
but it
member, I
was-
downloaded the Right to Know handbook, which was from 2023. I know they're having a new class, but I can attach that as a PDF too. It's a booklet, but,
I think that's a good idea. We have, new folks that have been elected and new folks that have been appointed and
Right.
folks that have been on boards, committees, and commissions, that it's a good refresher.
because I
for-
can put the link to the movie, sorry, link to the video, and I can give them the PDF of the download and let them do it.
Yep.
I can look for the handout that he talked about as well, if you want.
I have the link.
Okay,
Yep, I
All
know
right.
exactly what it is. I can send that to you.
okay.
I know I mentioned it when we talked about it before, but I don't think I ever sent you the actual
No.
link.
No, because I found
Okay.
the 2023 Right to Know, but I didn't.
It might be the same one.
Okay.
I don't know that it's different, but I do know that in 2024, the law changed, but it only changed based on what we can charge people. That was the change.
Yep.
And nobody's gonna be doing that, that's all gonna come through you or the town
Electronically,
clerk,
yep.
so, I wouldn't.
Yeah, if you had that
be
link, and I can
concerned.
put one email together to everybody, now that we've reappointed everybody, and it might just go to everybody. I think that's the easiest. The food pantry, we're working on that. Energy
Yeah,
Commission.
I do have an update, I'll get to that
Okay,
one, and
yeah.
we go through other business.
Energy Commission, Bruce had said they were working on theirs. I sent you the building report. The planning board, I'm gonna send the Ilseys over there, just for the discussion as we talked about. I haven't done anything, perambulation, things like that, I have not done anything more with that.
At some point, can we get an update? I know we might still have things in flux, but open positions, maybe a couple of them have closed recently, so.
Yeah, I think that what we did is we updated on the front of the website, there's only at the time that says there's two, there's a police officer and there's a full-time transfer station, which Jason thinks he's got that for somebody to bring in next week. And you're down to your one full-time police officer. But I can gladly do that.
And we still have a sexton opening.
Oh, yes, we do.
I'm laughing because hopefully someday we'll actually find someone that wants to do that job.
I know.
That's the only reason I'm asking, is the length of time we've been looking for someone.
It's been a while.
So, over a year and a half.
Mhm.
So, none of us sitting at this table can do the job because we can't legally be a cemetery trustee and a sexton. So, I know you guys were just gonna rush to sign up, but you can't.
Okay. Good to know.
I don't have anything more. Excuse me.
Any questions for Tia Bolton? No.
I will ask, it's not on my report, because it came up in public comment, about the horse sheds. There's $45,970.49 in that fund right now, the government building.
And that covers what buildings?
All the buildings that you have,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. So 45K?
45,970.49, that was what Beth sent you guys as of 2/28/25. And what Frank was getting to was two sentences. These two sentences didn't get in there.
Yeah, hang on just a second.
Sorry.
Does anybody want to talk about this now, or do you want to,
Well, I think it's
this is the
sure, it's a
horse
bigger
sheds.
discussion, but I just,
Yeah.
I've always kind of, maybe something to think for next year. I always kind of thought should have a better plan for our buildings and put
Right. I
a
was gonna
fair
say,
amount of money away. I mean, I think to
Yep.
only have less than
We said
50,000
we
in
wanted to
there,
do
we
that this year, so
Right.
we probably.
should be putting away as much every year as we have in there now, but I don't think the voters will vote on it until we have a plan. It seems like every board has a different,
And that's why we didn't
interest
put
in-
anything
They want
forward
a
this
plan.
year,
yeah,
Yeah.
we had.
because we didn't have that plan.
The old
So-
town hall was a point of contingency, and that kinda got dropped off, and this place needs we need something, I guess, and, but I don't know.
In the
I wouldn't be willing to, hate to see anything historical go away or fall down, I really truly do, I don't think I wouldn't vote to spend half of that tonight on something that employees don't even work out of at the moment.
How, anybody know how bad the leaks are? How much would it cost just to patch the leaks to keep from causing more damage?
I don't.
No, we did not ask anything like related to that, because it was for a grant, and the grant was for full replacement,
Right,
so, of the roof. So, no.
There was two bids, which I think I could circulate those again if somebody can decipher in the building world, see what I don't know if there was a number put out there for that.
I doubt that there is, but it's worth looking at, because, again, it was, scope of work was to
Right, to
replace it.
the whole thing, right.
So,
I mean,
But-
if we can patch it for under $1,000 and stop the leaking, I mean, it would stop the damage to the building.
right.
Right.
No. Anything else?
I'd go for that.
Okay. The, working on the plan for developing for next year's government building fund request, we might want to put that on for early summer so that we can start that discussion and get that done before budget season rolls around, because once that happens, we know we don't do anything else. So if it's
I
not
don't
done
even-
by September or early October, it's not gonna get done.
Right.
And we'll be talking about this next year too,
Yeah,
or at least some of us.
right.
Okay.
Okay?
And I can talk about the other
Okay, go ahead.
correspondence.
Yeah, well,
No, I can
I'm
talk
done
about
with that.
Okay.
No, go
So,
ahead.
so what Frank was looking for was this 2 sentences. It was, he read it at the beginning before he had his discussion. I don't know how, you did approve the minutes as amended. Do you want to amend them again, or do you want to add it to this week's? It's 2 sentences.
Well, I forgot all about it. It wasn't
Well-
malicious on my part.
It wasn't malicious on
I
any
can't
of
speak
ours,
for
I don't.
anybody else, but
No, and it was stated that, I wouldn't have caught it, so don't get me wrong, I'm most uninvolved in the minutes, so I would have not caught it anyway, but I was homesick, so it wasn't 5 of us that listened to it. But, not that it would have changed the outcome at all, but. Whatever's easiest, put them in so they can be recorded, that's his wish, it's fine. Whatever's the
my
easiest
thought-
legal wise.
My thought might have been that, could we reference it in today's public comment and quote it, just like he's got it there?
I think he wanted to make sure that it was tied to the subject that he was discussing on 310, and the fact that he was discussing it.
Do you want to
I
revisit it?
assume
the
That's
10th?
probably what he was trying to do, just in case, kind of thing.
I mean, I could add it to it, or you can relook at 310 and revise again.
I think that's probably
Probably
the
the
best
best
way.
way to do it.
310,
Do them next week. or what?
Yeah.
yep.
Note that back.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay. Brings us to the manifest. I will motion to order the treasurer to sign the payroll and accounts payables checks dated April 3rd, 2025, as included in the following manifests. Payroll manifest, $89,418.94. Accounts payable manifest, $89,884.59. John Stark accounts payable manifest, $250,000, and Ware School accounts payable manifest, $700,000, for a total of $1,129,303.53. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Selectman Drury. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say yes or yay?
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, motion passes 4-0-0. Okay. I know we have a lot of non-public minutes to get to this evening, so I would like to recommend that we defer the 24th and 25th March until next week. Okay with everybody? And then just move on to Selectmen Committee updates.
That's fine. I didn't think there was much to do with those, but we can put them off.
Selectmen Committee updates, Planning Board, I think we discussed a lot of this already. We went through the CIP, we went through Ray Menard. So we'll start with the CIP. Do we want to get that signed off tonight?
Yes, we do.
Okay. you were there, I think, for the February and all the leading up discussions. Maybe you could just comment on the school references, because I know it's been a long time since schools have been involved in this part of CIP, so was there any discussion about why it should remain? I'm assuming that, it gives you flexibility in the future, but I didn't know if there was any discussion
And that
about
was essentially it. We didn't want to shut them out.
Okay.
I mean, they are, we're always looking for input from them and never got any. So it was kind of frustrating on that level, but we don't want to say you're not welcome.
Right. Well, that definitely would not be true, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have any comments, questions?
No.
All right. So I would accept a motion to have the Chair of the Board of Selectmen sign on behalf of the Board of Selectmen the proposed revision B of the capital improvement programs dated 2/13/2025. Would anyone like to
I'll
move
make
that?
that motion.
Moved by Selectman Fillmore. Anyone like to second?
Second.
Second by Selectman Knapp. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say yes or yay.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? That would be myself as the signer. Okay. Motion passes 301. And just a reminder that even though there's not a place for the town clerk to sign, this would need to go over there because it's an official document, so they'll need to accept it into their system as well. So I will sign this off this evening since we have this copy. Okay, thank you. Still on planning board, there was also a verbal request from Chair Francisco. He would like a legal opinion regarding non-conformances on side setbacks. And so he requested that. I told him I would bring that to the board. I personally don't have an issue with it. It's definitely not an exigent circumstance per our policy, so I did not tell him that I thought that that should be sent to us in writing. That is what the policy says, so pointing that out for you guys. So, don't know if you want to go back to him and ask him to put it in writing. Again, it's not anything that's holding up a case. So, again, probably my fault for not pointing that out to him, but I told him I would take it back to the board, and that's what I'm doing, so.
I'm all right.
And I'm talking about the legal opinions policy. It says that they
Yes.
should submit the request in writing to us, and then in writing to legal unless we authorize a phone call.
Is he looking for a phone call, or is he just
No.
looking to write?
No, writing, yeah,
I think if he just copies us on,
Yeah,
what he sends.
yeah, I'm
that
all
should
right
be
with
sufficient.
Okay,
that. Don't need to make it.
All right.
Yeah.
yeah, and this is probably not something that NHMA would comment on because it's specific to our zoning, so.
Just a
I-
land use thing.
Yeah, I don't think they would have, we're not asking for an interpretation of law, we're asking for something related to our zoning, so. NHMA won't touch it, so that would be my 2 cents. Okay, so I think we're motion to have Chair Francisco contact legal in writing and copy us.
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, anyone like to second that?
Second. Oh, give it to Benji.
No, go ahead.
I'm not sure which one of you got first, so I'll take it to Benji like you said.
I'll arm wrestle you for it. You win.
Okay.
All right, motion made by Selectman Fillmore, seconded by Selectman Knapp. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say yes or yay?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, motion passes 400. Naomi, I'm assuming you can send that over to him? Okay, thank you. Okay. Do you guys have anything else from committees? Okay. Correspondence, other business? I didn't see any correspondence. So, I did have down the 91A, we've already talked about that. Regarding the draft food pantry, I did today, about midday, receive some input from Primex regarding alternate language related to the insurance requirements. I've not reviewed it in detail, but I did a quick first pass on it, and it does still appear to have some insurance requirements in it. So I think we have two options, probably more. One would be for you all to look at it, us to review it in more detail, talk about it. Or I could go back to Primex and ask them to discuss further, because the whole thing was about the food pantry not having any funds to actually buy insurance.
Right.
So, don't know what you guys want to do as far as how to proceed.
So if we went back, what would we go back be asking?
I would just go back and say, one of the reasons we were asking for this is because they have no money to buy insurance, and there's still some insurance requirements in here. Is there anything else that could be done?
So
That
what-
kind of conversation.
Yeah, why don't you, just to see if we can, I hate to,
Some
Yeah.
suggested language of our own to, or are
For,
we?
for removing insurance, I'd probably not want to do
I don't think we'd want
that.
to do that, yeah, no.
I don't see why there couldn't be some sort of waivers for volunteers that come into the building to be signed.
Yeah,
I would think that
there
people
is.
getting given the groceries could stay outside as I think they do now, and the volunteers helping. I mean, it happens in other town places. I would,
Yeah.
there's gotta be a way around it.
It could be just as
harmless
something as
clause or
simple as we didn't realize that line was still in there. It could be something that simple. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've not taken it any further. It just came
Yeah.
in this afternoon. and I
Yeah,
wanted
just
to
see
see
if
how
they,
you guys
just
wanted to
explain
do it.
that to them, see if we can,
Yeah.
hate to throw a wrench in it. There'll be some sort of hold harmless clause, like Bruce said.
Okay, I will do that. This one's a repeat from last week. We have notification, March 24th, from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They're having an open house on Tuesday, April 8th, 2025, to kick off a process to revise their master plan for the Hopkinton Everett Lake. And they'll have an open house on that date from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Slusser, S-L-U-S-S-E-R Center, located at 41 Houston Drive in Contoocook. Public is welcome anytime during that 2-hour window. So, do you got anything?
I do not.
I'd like to talk about one thing. Regarding BCC emails. Was there ever discussion on the select board on the implementation of that? If anyone recalls?
I don't recall any specific conversation when, at least when I went through the NHMA training, they said it's a best practice.
Okay. I guess, I think to clear everything up, it would be great if we had a policy on it. And if it's that great practice, we probably ought to implement that across other boards in town also. Committees?
Yeah, I'm trying to recall if it's in our operations policy already. I don't think so.
I didn't find anything,
Yeah, I just say, I really don't think it's there, so.
yeah.
We have potential other changes to that we've discussed in non-public. So can we hold that and maybe make them all at the same
Yeah,
time?
yeah. I'm
Have that
just
discussion
thinking to
at the
come up
same
with a
time?
policy at the, would be, and if we think it's so important that we do it, it probably ought to apply to other committees and boards too.
If you want to talk about other things to implement with other boards, we also probably should talk at some point about maybe a consistent template for these policies and procedures too, so that they're all somewhat the same in terms of how they get signed off and what does that look like. So that might be something to lump in there too.
Yeah, just to kind of make everything consistent across town.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Park, doing their bylaws, was trying to figure out the best template to use. I'll also say, if nobody else is interested, I'd be happy to throw my hat in for working with the cable committee.
I was gonna volunteer, but that's not nice, so I kept my mouth shut, because I certainly think you should be the one.
How did I miss that? I'm
But I
just
would-
missing things left and right
No,
here.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
appreciate it, so I kept my mouth shut, but I was really
Okay.
hoping you
Yeah,
certainly
it's
the-
way down here, and I just skipped right over it. I went
seems
to
like the most
correspondence.
qualified.
James volunteers, thank you, James.
No, my name is Benji.
You won't get much use of Simp, because I know nothing.
So I think in the past, we've made motions on those.
I think last week you just mentioned them.
Yeah.
Who
but they-
was the different,
Did we?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well then, there we go. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for
I'll
volunteering.
I'll add you to their group.
Awesome.
Well, I know you'll do a great job because, you know, ones and zeros mean numbers to me that you add up and see how much is in your checking account, not bits and bytes of data. I do know that there's gigabytes, terabytes, and all those things, but, yeah, not good for me. Okay, thank you for volunteering.
When my grandkids come over, I give them lots of giggle bites.
Giggle bites. Yeah, I don't think those have anything to do with data. All right. I think that brings us to the agenda for next week.
Yeah, so I just need, I have 6:30 non-public to 7:30 for cyber training. And 7:30, Jason had asked about a new hire coming forward, so that brought me to 7:45 at Pledge of Allegiance. And then we have public comment, ethics committee discussion, because Carl had asked to be added. Then Jason for the 4 policies, and he's got quotes for the asset software bid. And then basically Parks and Rec bylaws, and then the rest of it. So it looks worse than it is.
Could you run 7:45 and beyond again?
7:45, I had called to order.
Mhm.
Then I had public comment.
Mhm.
I had ethics committee discussion. Then I had Jason for 5 things, 4 policies, and to award the asset software bid. And then I had Parks and Rec bylaws review by the board. And then I don't know what consent agenda, but then I would have administrator's report, manifest minutes, the same traditional.
Okay, so Jason, the 4 documents and asset software, and then Parks and Rec was the, what, rest of it?
The bylaws, and then consent agenda, and then the rest of it,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay.
And if for some chance the B for hiring doesn't happen, I would start us at 7:30. He's supposed to verify that with me, but he had asked earlier on Friday.
Okay, possibly. Anything to add before we go into non-public? Okay. Anything else to talk about before we go into non-public?
Nope.
All right. Then I will motion that we enter a non-public under NHRSA 91A32M for the purpose of reviewing draft non-public minutes for finalization. This does require a second and a roll call vote. I will state for the public that we will adjourn at the conclusion of non-public sessions this evening. So once we vote, we will be in a non-public. So would anyone like to second that?
Second.
Thank you, Selectman Drury. Roll call vote, Matthews is yes, Snap?
Yes.
Bloom is not here. Drury?
Yep.
Yes.
Fillmore?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes 400. We're in non-public. So give us a minute to get the video off. You gonna get the door?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.